My wife came back from a business trip laughing until she saw what I found. I heard the sound of tires crunching against gravel before I saw the car. It was late afternoon, that quiet hour when the house feels suspended between day and evening. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through my phone, when I realized the engine outside sounded familiar. Amy was home. The front door opened, and she walked in glowing. Not tired. Not stressed. Not relieved to be back. She was radiant. Her smile was wide and careless, the kind she used to have years ago, before deadlines, before meetings, before the constant pressure of being impressive. She dropped her bag by the door and laughed as she kicked off her shoes. "There you are," she said cheerfully. "God, it feels good to be home." I stood up and hugged her, breathing in her perfume. Something about it felt fresher, sharper, like it hadn't had time to settle into our space yet. "I missed you," I said, and I meant it. She pulled back, eyes bright. "You should have seen the place. Michelin star restaurant, incredible wine, and the presentation went perfectly. They loved it." She talked fast. Too fast. About meetings, clients, late dinners. About how exhausting, but rewarding, it all was. She laughed freely, her hands moving as she spoke, her energy spilling into the room. I smiled and listened, and felt something twist in my stomach. Later, as we stood in the bedroom, I wrapped my arms around her again. "Careful," I joked lightly. "These business trips are starting to sound a little too good." Her body stiffened. She laughed, but it was sharp. Defensive. "Don't be weird," she said, stepping out of my arms. She avoided my eyes, suddenly busy unpacking. "You know how hard I work." Her laughter stopped. She went quiet, and then she froze. I watched as color drained from her face. She stared at the open suitcase like it had betrayed her. Her hands began to tremble as she muttered something under her breath. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," she snapped. She shoved something deeper into the suitcase, zipped it halfway, then grabbed it and rushed into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. That was the moment my suspicion turned solid. I opened the suitcase. Inside, tucked beneath neatly folded clothes, was a gift box. Black. Elegant. Lingerie. New. Expensive. Completely unfamiliar. Inside the box was a small card. "When we finally get time alone." My hands went cold. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the words until they blurred. There was no explanation that made sense. No innocent version of events where this belonged to me. She had lied. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, Amy acted like nothing had happened. She poured coffee, talked about upcoming projects, kissed my cheek like she always did. But her eyes never quite settled. She watched me when she thought I wasn't looking. I waited. When she stepped into the shower, I picked up her phone. I didn't have to search long. One number appeared again and again during her trip. Ethan Reynolds. The messages told the rest of the story. Late-night texts. Hotel references. Inside jokes that didn't belong to me. Photos, some subtle, some not, taken in a hotel room I'd never seen. I locked the phone and stepped outside. I wasn't shaking. I was calm. And that scared me.
Ninth grade honors English class. The teacher didn't like me. Only teacher I ever had that didn't like me. Others would get frustrated with how my lack of effort at times, but still like me as a person. She just flat out didn't like me. One of the reasons was that she didn't like athletes because they would miss her class regularly for travel for games. And I played 3 sports, so I was missing a good bit. Now, I was also missing for academic stuff like math/science competitions and quiz bowl tournaments, but she was particularly bothered about missing for sports. Case in point. She would intentionally double the amount of homework due the day after long away games knowing that the players wouldn't have the time to finish it all. And shocker, she didn't check homework every single day, but always checked after away games. I've written about her before, but she also would give me 70s and low 80s on papers without any red marks on them, but people around me would have red marks all over their paper and would have 90s. After one particularly low grade on an assignment that I knew I had actually done really well on, I inquired about it. Her exact response was that I was only doing 70% of my ultimate capability and the others were doing 90% of theirs. So I specifically asked, does that mean my paper can be better than someone else's but be 20 plus points lower? And she said yes. And to show this wasn't just me misunderstanding things, she recommended me for an advanced writing class a year earlier than students were supposed to be able to take it. So if those two things weren't bad enough, she gave us an opportunity for extra credit toward the end of the year. We had to go to a local college's rendition of Antigone, write a 2,500-word paper on it and tie it into what we discussed in class on the play, and also turn in our ticket and play bill. It was due on a Monday and the play was only going on Friday through Sunday, so there was no way to turn it in ahead of time. But I was going to miss class that Monday all day for an academic competition, representing the school. And it was the biggest one of the year, like had to place top 10 in a previous competition to qualify. So it's obviously an excused absence. I told her for an entire week prior to the play that I was going to miss on Monday, and she told me multiple times to turn it in first thing Tuesday morning. So I go to the play, write the paper, go to the academic competition Monday and place first in one category and second in another, and then Tuesday morning before basketball workouts at 7 a.m. I go to her room to turn in the assignment. She refuses to take it because it's late, and she didn't recall ever suggesting that I could turn it in on Tuesday, she told me 4 times. Her reasoning. 1. Another student that missed for the competition was able to turn it in. But that student lived across the street from the school. I lived 20 minutes away and couldn't drive. 2. My mom was a teacher at the school, so I could have just sent it with her. Except I had been told to turn it in Tuesday, so there was no reason for me to think to have my mom turn in my assignment for me, plus she has her own students and classes to worry about. 3. I could have done the work Monday evening, which wouldn't be fair to the other students. So I went into the metadata for the paper that showed the last time it had been saved was Saturday afternoon. She still refused to grant me any credit for it. So I was out the $25 for the ticket, the time that it took, plus it really inconvenienced my mom who had to pick me up Friday from practice, rush me home to shower and change, then rush me back downtown for the play, and then come pick me up again 2 hours later. So my mom was pretty pissed about it too. This teacher also prided herself on the fact that nobody had ever made an A on her final exam. She thought she was the toughest teacher ever, really she just loaded students up with a bunch of busy work. So the last day of class she gave a few minutes at the end of class and asked, "What's your biggest wish?" to the class as a whole. I piped up, "I wish for an A on the exam," and she laughed and said, "Yeah, and I wish for $1 million and not to have to deal with you anymore." So, all of that sets up the final exam. It's 100 questions and then a 5-point bonus question that asked those generic "What was your favorite part of the class? What did you learn?" etc. We got 2 hours to take the exam, and students that finished early had to wait until 1 hour was up so that there was just 1 point of people getting up and leaving rather than being distracting throughout. So I finished the 100 questions in about 20 minutes. So I spent the remaining part of the hour just blasting her in the bonus question. I said that I'm not sure I learned anything and pointed to her never making any comments on how to improve my writing. I said my favorite part of the class was it finally being over and not having to deal with her shit anymore, and brought up a number of other little things that happened on top of that mentioned above. And I said that she was by far the worst teacher I had ever had and that the school is worse off with her teaching the entire 9th grade. The bell rings for the hour and I'm the only person of the entire 110 students to leave at the hour mark. Now, on exam days the teacher doesn't proctor their own exams so that they are available to answer questions or if the classes are split among different rooms. So I have to wait for my mom to finish proctoring a different exam, so I'm just sitting out in Breezeway. The teacher finds me, holding my exam, with tears in her eyes and tells me to meet her in the principal's office. She then storms off, so I head over. As I'm waiting there I recount what happened to the soccer coach who is sitting there cause he made some comment about "Surprised to see you sent in here." Eventually she comes back in with my mom, who she pulled out of proctoring an exam, and we all go in to see the principal. She's crying, screaming, literally choking every minute or so. After about 45 minutes of me spilling everything I'd gone through that year, all things I'd already vented to my mom about plenty of times, the principal finally looks at her and goes, "How much was the question worth?" She said 5 bonus points, and he says, "Then just don't give him the bonus points." So I made a 98 on the final instead of a 103. Missed 2 questions. Every other student got the bonus points and the next highest grade was an 81. Thinking she would get the last laugh, I noticed a few days before grades were due that one of my assignments from the second week of class all the way back in August had been dropped 10 points. My final grade ended up being a 94.4, which was a B at the time. But I couldn't prove that she had altered my grade. I just had them in a spreadsheet to determine my grade ahead of time. Should have been a 95.2, but nothing that would prove anything, since I could have just typed it wrong. I did it. The summer after, the school decided to change to a 10-point scale, and so 90 plus was an A, so my B became an A. She also had to have her homework assignments each week signed off by the department chair, and she had to start accepting assignments via email. 2 years later she was fired after other students started having real issues with her. Prior to me, the administration just thought it was a case of students complaining about the hard teacher. Still think she deserved every bit of it, but I certainly didn't think it would set in motion her getting fired. Though, again, she deserved it. Hopefully people are still reading. After the funeral, my wife got $300 million and left me, but froze in shock when the will was read. I realized my marriage was a performance long before the divorce papers appeared. I just didn't want to believe it. The moment of clarity came in a rented auditorium that smelled faintly of dust and warm electronics. I had taken a seat in the last row, partly because I was late, partly because I didn't want to be seen. My wife, Lisa, was standing on the stage under white lights, barefoot, dressed in neutral tones that made her look intentional without trying too hard. She wasn't rehearsing lines. She was rehearsing impact. Her voice trembled exactly where it needed to. Her pauses were calibrated. Her eyes scanned the imaginary audience, landing on invisible faces, drawing them in. She spoke about breaking free from limiting beliefs, about unlearning conditional love, about how sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who benefit from us staying small. She never said my name. She didn't have to. Every sentence framed an antagonist. Every metaphor sharpened an outline. I felt myself being sculpted in real time into a silhouette, controlling, fearful, emotionally stingy. The kind of man audiences loved to hate because he was vague enough to be universal. When she finished, the room erupted. Applause. A few quiet sobs. Someone whispered, "That was powerful." I sat there, clapping mechanically, wondering when exactly I'd stop being a husband and become a cautionary tale. When the lights came up, she smiled like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said lightly. "Can you help me pack up the audio gear?" No acknowledgement. No hesitation. Just delegation. So I helped. I wrapped cables. I unplugged microphones. I lifted heavy cases into a van. My wife chatted with attendees about vulnerability and courage while I loaded equipment like a roadie. On the drive home, neither of us spoke. The city lights slid past the windshield in long streaks. When we pulled into the driveway, she broke the silence. "If you're going to be upset," she said calmly, "maybe do it in the garage. I really don't have space for that energy right now." That was the night I understood. I wasn't her partner. I was a prop she no longer needed to acknowledge. Over the next week, she behaved as if nothing unusual had occurred. She cooked breakfast. She asked if I'd seen her charger. She posted Instagram stories about her healing journey. Smiling selfies. Long captions about authenticity. Quotes about shedding old skins. Meanwhile, something in me had shifted. I started noticing details I'd ignored before. Drafts saved under vague file names. Notes on her phone outlining talking points. Old calendar entries labeled brand work dating back months, long before the speech, long before the emotional distance she claimed had suddenly become unbearable. One afternoon while she was out, I opened a folder on her laptop. Merchandise mock-ups. Tote bags. Hoodies. Mugs. Slogans like unconditioned, no more shrinking, free woman era. Then I found the manuscript. A memoir in progress. In it, I wasn't a man. I was an obstacle. A symbol of patriarchy. A fear masquerading as love. My real words were rephrased. My silences reinterpreted. My attempts to communicate transformed into manipulation. She had been writing my ending long before I knew the story had begun. That night, at dinner with friends, she stood and raised her glass. "I'm stepping fully into my truth," she announced. "And I need the people around me to either honor that or step aside." Everyone looked at me. I stood, folded my napkin, and walked out. I refused to applaud my own erasure. 2 days later, the post began. She didn't use my name. She didn't need to. Her followers filled in the blanks eagerly. Comments poured in, supportive, outraged, righteous. "Proud of you. Classic emotional abuser behavior. You deserve better." She went live, offering healing sessions. She cried on cue. She spoke softly about betrayal. Her audience doubled. My silence became her proof. Then my sister called. "She's doing a podcast," she said quietly. "She's saying you manipulated her for years." That was when I stopped protecting her narrative. I didn't scream. I didn't post. I documented. Voice messages where she rehearsed stories. Screenshots of strategy discussions. Messages where she admitted framing moments for content. Timelines that didn't match the public version. I sent her one text. "Stop using our marriage as content. If you don't, I will correct the record." Within hours, posts vanished. Lives were cancelled. Her activity slowed. The first crack appeared. A week later, Jules reached out. Jules had been Lisa's closest friend. Her confidant. The one who always seemed calm, grounded, immune to theatrics. We met at a quiet tea house. Jules looked tired. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "I'm done covering for her." She told me everything. Lisa had been planning this rebrand for years. Testing narratives. Workshopping trauma language. Positioning herself as a survivor before the marriage even cracked. She needed a villain, Jules said softly. "And you were convenient." Then she mentioned it. TEDx, she said. She applied to speak. That was the thread Lisa never thought I'd pull. I asked for the original pitch. And I wrote one email. No emotion. No insults. Just evidence. The application was suspended. That night, Lisa posted a black square. Her followers were confused. Support turned into questions. Then she messaged me. "What did you do?" She changed tactics. Concern replaced empowerment. She messaged my sister. Old colleagues reached out asking if I was okay. The narrative shifted from liberated woman to worried ex-wife. So I released the evidence. Quietly. Precisely. To the same audience she'd used. The messages stopped. A week later, she went live and admitted she'd made mistakes. For the first time, she didn't control the room. Months later, everything was quiet. At a small local event, live music, folding chairs, cheap wine, I met Mara. We talked about books. Records. Ordinary things. For the first time, I wasn't content. I was just human. And that was enough. Thanks for watching.